Another ordinary afternoon in my kitchen until my stepson did something that left me motionless. Unready, I stood there. Not for that purpose. I never imagined I'd experience a moment like that. Not absent, not with him. Life offers no warnings before crossing lines. It doesn't spark recognition or wave a flag that says, this is it. This is the turning point. Negative. It occurs amidst the mundane. When you're vulnerable, in worn-out clothes scraping remnants from a pan, exhausted yet pushing on, living for others all your life. Just cooking, that's all. At the stove, stirring a pot of unwanted food. Silence enveloped the house. Silence prevails. My husband was always locked in his office. The television lay silent. Only the bubbling sauce in the fridge's low hum filled the air. Then, he entered. Adrian had returned home for the summer, a grown young man with a calm, watchful presence that unsettled me. Home from college. Heightened serenity, gliding silently with each step. Since his return, silence enveloped him, courteous, warm and inviting. Perhaps overly perceptive, yet I dismissed it. I smiled at him as usual. A faint, weary smile, the sort you share when words escape you. That day felt different. Was it the gaze in his eyes, the way he edged nearer, or how the light danced on his face by the kitchen window? Uncertain of its nature. In an instant, everything changed. He spoke. I'll handle that soon. It wasn't the words, but the delivery. His voice held a gentle softness. Silence lingers. Its burden, then his hand. An innocent gesture turned awry. It ought to have been trivial, yet it stole my breath. The spoon slipped from my grasp, clattering against the counter. I remained still, paralyzed, heart pounding in my chest. I recall thinking, no, this can't be real. Absent. This isn't right. Yet it was. What's the worst part? I let it go for a moment. I wish I could say I took a step back. I asked him to exit the kitchen. I mentioned that this isn't acceptable. Yet I did not. In that moment, I transcended the role of a stepmother or a spouse, a woman by the stove. I was a person untouched, unseen for far too long. It frightens me to admit this, yet that moment, that fleeting instant in my kitchen, it twisted into a reality I still can't navigate. I believed I was merely a solitary housewife preparing a meal. I never expected it to be where I'd lose a piece of me. It all started there. What about the others? Experience it for yourself. It's chaotic. It's intricate. I still don't know how I feel about any of it. Perhaps, just perhaps, discussing it might bring relief. Perhaps listening will aid you if you've ever felt isolated, unseen, or caught in a moral dilemma. Before we dive into the tale, if you're new, don't forget to subscribe for the shocking infidelity saga. Here we unveil authentic tales that reveal concealed feelings and secret encounters. If this story resonates with you, give it a like and share your thoughts in the comments. I'm still figuring it out, and perhaps you are too. Prepared? Here's the real story. In my early 40s, married to Richard for 7 years. We began with a spark, as many couples often do. He was thoughtful, captivating, the type of man who held doors and always kissed you goodnight. That version of him was fleeting. The warmth between us faded, first slowly, then all at once. He's perpetually in his office. Laptop open, phone to ear, nodding in meetings, texting about a project. I'm lost on what half of his job entails now. He speaks, yet my ears have long since shut down. Not from a lack of concern, but from the knowledge that he was oblivious to my attention. Our conversations are limited to bills, groceries, or home repairs. He no longer gazes at me as he once did. He no longer touches me as he once did. At times, I sense I'm merely an accessory in the room. I prepare meals. I tidy up. I fold his clothes, iron his shirts, refill the coffee tin before it empties. Each day I question if he even sees. We avoid conflict. It's simple, no drama, no slamming doors, no shouting matches, only quiet. Isn't silence sometimes more haunting than a scream? The house felt alive once when more souls filled its spaces. When laughter filled the air, guests arrived, and plans unfolded. It resonates now, particularly in the kitchen. Once, the kitchen was my favorite place. A spacious island counter, morning sunlight streaming through the window, tiny notes clinging to the fridge with magnets. It once felt vibrant. Now I simply go through the motions. Slice, mix, clean, do it again. I constantly nourish others, yet I can't recall the last time someone checked on me. Adrian returned, 21. Richard's child from his previous marriage. He would visit on weekends as a child, a quiet and polite boy. He went off to college and we hardly saw him again. Some birthday calls. A rare snapshot on Facebook, yet, a month prior he returned. Only for the summer, he claimed. He craved solitude, a pause, moments for reflection. He has changed. Still silent, yet an unseen depth lingers, as if he observes more than he utters. He sees what others overlook. I initially dismissed it. I allowed him room, prepared his morning meal, made an effort to stay back. Yet small details began to emerge. His unprompted help with the dishes was remarkable. His praise for my dinner was delightful. Truly praised it. Not merely a casual thanks. He lingered in the doorway while I folded laundry or arranged the spice rack. He began to inquire how I fared, my life before meeting his dad, the music I enjoyed. It was pure. It had been ages since anyone showed interest in me. It unsettled me, yet not as I had anticipated. It opened my eyes, conscious of my identity as a woman. I still craved visibility. To gain recognition, beneath the apron and the daily grind, I still breathed and my heart yearned for more than mere survival. It was like basking in sunlight after a lifetime in darkness. Yet it frightened me too. I understood it was meant to be uncomfortable. It was there unmistakably. He'd catch me gazing out the window and inquire about my thoughts. I was at a loss for words. He leaned on the counter as I cooked, sharing memories from his childhood. Small details I never considered significant. I woke up, checked the time, and wondered if he'd be in the kitchen. I began to brush my hair before heading downstairs. Applying a touch of gloss, even if it's just chapstick, I loathed every moment of it. Yet I pressed on. Richard remained oblivious. Naturally, he didn't. Adrian, however, observed it all. I kept convincing myself it was innocent, it was pleasant, it was delightful. A young man can be kind to his stepmother without issue, yet it felt anything but harmless. Something was emerging, gently, softly, hidden away. A storm felt before its scene. The kitchen radiated warmth in every moment. Somewhat more charged, a touch riskier. I was lost, unable to find a way to end it. I reassured myself it would fade away. It was merely a phase. He'd return to school in the fall, and this strange tension would disappear as if it had never been there. Yet a whisper within me, solitude whispers. Something craved. It wished for no conclusion. That's the haunting part. Not his actions. Not even close to what I permitted. Yet a part of me embraced it. Exactly that. That's the part one struggles to forgive. It began like any other afternoon. By the stove, I cooked a simple pasta dish. Quick and to the point. No grand plans were made. Most days I had little energy. Yet I found myself in that kitchen. Someone had to be there. Richard was naturally upstairs on a call. Door closed. Voices echoed through the hallway. A reminder of his presence in the house. Soft music drifted from my phone, gentle and tender. Silence speaks. Merely ambient sound for companionship. Aroma of garlic and tomatoes filled the air. Cozy and inviting. As I stirred the sauce, my mind wandered, and then I heard footsteps approaching. Adrian. I stayed facing forward. His movements spoke volumes. Silence. Serene. He walked slowly. The slow, steady presence felt familiar now. A comforting constant over the past weeks. It smells incredible, he remarked. I grinned, eyes averted. It's merely pasta. It smelled like the finest pasta he'd ever tasted, he remarked, and his tone held a hint of something more. Subtle, yet persistent. The compliment was more than just about the food. He moved in. The air changed before his figure appeared. He leaned on the counter next to me, arms crossed, observing. His gaze was intense, not fleeting but piercing, making me acutely aware of his presence. We talked briefly, shallow thoughts. He inquired about my day, shared insights from a podcast he heard, and joked about Richard's ongoing struggle with the coffee machine. I chuckled. It wasn't particularly amusing, yet I found myself laughing regardless. I did it for my own reasons. Laughter brought a pleasant warmth. As I bent to fetch the strainer from the lower cabinet, his gaze pierced me. About me. Not merely observing but truly observing. I rose slowly, attempting to dismiss the flutter in my chest. Perhaps it was all in my head. Perhaps I was merely too sensitive. Perhaps I had consumed an excess of films and tales. In an instant I conveyed all of that to myself. I assured myself it was trivial. He stepped closer than I anticipated and asked, "Need help?" Absolutely, I replied, my gaze fixed on the sauce. Stir this for a moment while I drain the pasta. He grasped the spoon and our fingers brushed. Only a stroke. Just a heartbeat. Yet we lingered a moment longer. The instant, so tiny, so trivial to others, resonated deeply within me. It resonated within me. I moved aside and he began to stir. I approached the sink, striving to concentrate, attempting to dispel the sensation. Yet his presence lingered just behind me. His warmth. The stillness hung thick, more oppressive than the bubbling pot. He spoke once more. You look great today. I tilted my head slightly, just enough to glimpse his expression. He wasn't smiling like a child praising his stepmother. Something else lingered. Something subtle yet powerful, man. That day, his eyes held a secret, a sight I hadn't witnessed from a man in ages. It frightened me. Felt great. It ought not to have. I should have kept it out. Yet I did. What's the worst part? I remained silent. I turned back to the sink, heart racing, hands trembling as I poured the water. I stood, steam rising to my face, feigning a typical afternoon. I was simply preparing dinner. No change had occurred. Yet I sensed a change. A fissure had formed. Silently, gently, the instant I sensed that change within me, I realized it was impossible to overlook. Never again. I convinced myself it meant nothing. That moment felt anything but innocent. I convinced myself I was overthinking it. He's merely showing kindness, I remarked. He's a youth. Perhaps he's unaware of the impression it creates. I am the grown-up. I understand the boundary. I haven't done anything wrong. Still, the issue extended beyond that instant. It was the aftermath. That night in bed, I couldn't shake the thought swirling in my mind. I played it back in my mind, just like a cinematic moment. A warm twist in my stomach hit me as I recalled how close he stood. What's the worst part? The part one loathed to confess, even to myself? It was satisfying. Something stirred to life. A buried feeling, lost beneath the weight of routine and disappointment, faded from memory. Years passed without a hint of recognition. Nope, not like that. Not as a woman would. Richard, months have passed since he last touched me. Forehead kisses are gone. No hands on my back as he walked by. Keep your hands to yourself when the lights go out. Silence. I gave it a shot. I did. I donned the blue dress he adored. Applied makeup one evening, only for dinner. Candles flickered in the bedroom once. He was oblivious. He claimed exhaustion and faced the wall. In the dark, I sat staring at the ceiling, pondering when it all ceased. And why I didn't push harder to reclaim it. We didn't argue. No major betrayals occurred. No intense confrontations, simply drifting away. Like a radio station fading away. One day, I noticed it had been nearly 5 months since we last made love. 5. When I mentioned it softly, cautiously, he merely shrugged. He mentioned feeling stressed. Claimed a deadline loomed. I inquired whether he still saw me as attractive. Silence followed. Switched topics. Indeed, when Adrian glanced at me like that in the kitchen, when he genuinely complimented my appearance, it stirred something deep within me. I initially attempted to dismiss it. Attempted to act as if all was well. Yet, the harder it was pressed, the stronger it resisted. The following morning, I chose a blouse I hadn't worn in ages. It clung a bit more now, embracing spots it hadn't earlier. I faced the mirror, head tilted. I convinced myself it was just about looking nice for the day. Yet I was aware of my thoughts. I despised that. It was unbearable. A hint of mascara graced my lashes. Wiped it away. Put it back on. Text at my heart raced the entire time. I heard Adrian descend the stairs and hesitated before leaving the bedroom. I'm at a loss. I held on until the fridge door creaked open. The clink of glass as juice flows in. I stepped out. He pivoted. He gazed, not merely seen but observed. Once more I reassured myself it was nothing. I convinced myself it was just my imagination, yet I sensed it. The stillness lingers. The spark in his gaze, his smile subtle yet knowing, hinted at secrets I was unaware of. I stayed occupied all day, cleaning linens, sorting the pantry, watering plants that were already fine, drowning out the noise and chaos, yet they continued to fall through the gaps. Pictures, emotions, small instances. His voice softened when he spoke to me. His fingers brushed against mine as he passed me an object. He stood a tad too close. I sensed it was wrong. I realized I ought to dismiss it. Then the questions began. What if it's only me? Am I the only one experiencing this? What if he's oblivious to his actions? What if it's just my imagination? Yet I was aware. I always knew it deep inside. He sensed it as well. That's when shame seeped in. Dense and weighty, akin to a drenched coverlet. I found myself looking for him, awaiting his approach, glancing at the time while outside, curious about his return. It was not love. It was more than that. It was extraordinary. It resonated with the feeling of desire. To be noticed, to exist. I despised myself for craving it. Yet it was necessary, as essential as breath. It felt like a long-awaited release. I was unaware of my suffocation, each time his gaze lingered just a moment too long, or his hand lingering just a beat too long, or his voice lowering slightly as he spoke my name. I stayed still. I let it happen. I allowed it to unfold, not that I wished for it to advance. Yet I was lost to all other emotions. That's the part one still can't forgive myself for, not the focus. Leave the guilt behind. Yet the need was overwhelming. I allowed it to embrace me. I knew it would burn in the end. Kept going. The appearance. The remarks. The air shifted whenever we were alone in a room. It only grew weightier. Authentic. Adrian began to speak. Gentle textures. Mindful matters. Words that seemed innocent at first glance, yet they were not. Not how he expressed them. Not how he gazed at me then. Your scent is delightful today. The first time it surprised me. At the sink I stood, sleeves rolled high, cleaning a pan. Nothing fancy. I never thought I had on any fragrance. Just ordinary soap and the shampoo I used earlier. Yet he spoke as if it held significance, as if it mattered. I looked at him, uncertain of my reply. He kept his gaze steady. A few days later, after I chuckled at one of his jokes. Just a tiny thing. A whimsical notion. He expressed a longing for someone like you in his life. He spoke with a gentle touch. Independent, calm and composed. Simply truthful. I stood there, dish towel in hand, gripping it tighter than necessary. I could no longer pretend it was nothing. Never again. One afternoon, I cleared a path for him to reach the cabinet. I moved aside, and he extended his hand behind me. Gently. So gently. He stood too close. The space between us felt charged like a pause before thunder. I recoiled. Not out of fear. Out of awareness. Yet I stayed put. He offered no apology. He brushed by me as if nothing had occurred. Perhaps nothing occurred. Yet all was different now. Our tension sparked with a pulse of its own. It lingered in the room with us. It began to rain one afternoon. Difficult, a rain that hammers the windows, casting shadows across the midday sky. Richard was out, attending a meeting across town. Only Adrian and I remained. The light blinked briefly. On the other hand, suddenly all was engulfed in darkness. Candles flickered to life. I arranged them in the kitchen as I had in past storms. I didn't consider the atmosphere I was creating, just checking on my past actions. In the dark, with only candlelight dancing, it felt transformed. Gentler, nearer. He entered the kitchen, a smile on his face. This feels a bit romantic, he remarked. I feigned ignorance to his words, concentrated on the cutting surface. He extended his assistance, claimed he felt dull. I passed him a knife and pointed to the vegetables. He lingered next to me, too close for comfort. Our elbows brushed. Next our hands. I gazed upward. He did too. We locked eyes, suspended in a moment that lingered too long. I ought to have spoken up. I ought to have turned my gaze. Yet I did not. Only when I noticed the softness in his gaze. His chest rose a touch slower. As if he were concealing something. I blinked and glanced down. My heart raced, echoing in my ears. The storm raged on, growing louder. Gus. Storm. Yet all I sensed was the void of silence between us. And then he spoke. You merit more. Just so. It broke something within me. I was aware of it. I had known it for ages, yet it remained unspoken. Silently. Not genuinely. Without emotion. I remained silent. I was unable to. As I sliced the carrots, tears blurred my vision. He held back. He remained still. He lingered by my side, slicing quietly. Silence enveloped the room. The candles danced in the dim light. I recall an intense desire to escape. To step outside. Searching for a way to shatter the silence. That was the moment to walk away. Should have left. Spoke a word. Everything. Yet I didn't. What came next? I was caught off guard. Night had fallen. Richard had retreated upstairs for the night. He claimed exhaustion, pecked my cheek, hardly grazed me, then vanished behind the bedroom door. I lingered in the kitchen as usual, scrubbing the dishes. The lights dimmed. The house was silent. The air felt thick that night, as if the world paused in anticipation. The warmth of the water enveloped my hands and I concentrated on it. Aromatic soap wafts through the air. Plates clink in the sink. Anything to anchor my thoughts from drifting away. Adrian slipped in unnoticed. I merely experienced his presence. Silence enveloped him. Initially, no. Suddenly, footsteps approached from behind. Then it hit me. That hand. Gentle, cozy. Resting on my shoulder. I stood still. Not from fear. Beyond acknowledgement, I pivoted gradually. There he stood, gazing at me as if I were the last soul on earth, as if he noticed me. Truly noticed me. We locked eyes. Time slipped away as we stood there. Moments? Perhaps even more. I sensed it before it unfolded. That instant. A change in direction. The silence between us constricted, leaving no room to breathe. He leaned closer. I let him go. The air thickened. A moment passed between us, one I should have ended but didn't. Only once. Concise. Charged. As swift as a match igniting. I recoiled, breath caught. My heart raced, echoing in my ears. I gazed at him. Upon his visage, the weight of our recent actions lingered between us. I wish I could claim I rejected him right away. I wish I could claim indifference. I just can't. For that fleeting instant, I felt vibrant. Yearned, not unseen. That feeling, terrifying, beautiful, dangerous, shook me to my core. Leave, I murmured. He remained still. His face remained motionless, completely exposed. I raised my voice a bit. Adrian, I beg you. He paused, only for a moment. He nodded. Silently, gently. He exited the kitchen in silence. The door clicked shut behind him. I collapsed onto the ground. I fell before I knew my knees had given out. I lingered on the frigid tiles, trembling hands, breath quickening, not out of fear. Yet I was aware. In that instant, everything shifted. There was no turning back. The following morning seemed surreal. I drifted through the motions as if submerged, leisurely, weighty, uncertain if anyone noticed the tempest lurking beneath my surface. I lingered by the stove, flipping pancakes I couldn't bear to touch. Aromatic syrup and butter wafted through the air. Yet it no longer offered the solace it once did. It seemed off. I was pretending everything was fine when it clearly wasn't. Adrian entered as I poured the coffee. Silence enveloped him. Ignored me. I headed to the cabinet, took a mug and settled at the table's far end. I couldn't fault him. I couldn't bear to look at him either. Yet, even without sight, his presence was palpable. The quiet hung heavily between us. Excessive noise. Richard arrived moments later. Unaware, whistling an old tune softly, as if guilt didn't linger in the air around us. He pressed his lips to my cheek, took a seat at the table, and expressed his gratitude for the meal. I can't recall my response. I busied my hands wiping the clean counter, rearranging items that were fine as they were. Richard bit into his pancake, glanced at us and smiled. He chuckled, pleased to see them bonding, as if it were a charming family scene. I stood still. The words cut deep. Adrian gazed at his plate. My stomach churned. I felt an urge to scream. I wished to tell him to cease his smile. I needed to share what went down last night, that all he believed to be innocent, kind, and mundane was anything but. Yet I did not. I returned the smile, concise, empty. Once breakfast ended, I headed upstairs. I shut the bedroom door. Perched on the bed's edge, eyes fixed on the floor, lost in a swirl of emotions. Played it back in my head, the embrace. That instant. How I stayed still. I allowed it to unfold. And even worse, the part of me that craved more. It filled me with dread. Suddenly my phone vibrated. Adrian's message. Apologies, I had no choice. Simply that. Easy, truthful, weighty. I gazed at it. Give it a read. 2 times. Once more. My finger lingered above the screen. I ought to have erased it on the spot. Yet I didn't. Not at this moment. I lingered with it. Allow it to linger within me. At last. It's gone. Yet it was already too late. The words had etched themselves into my being. I understood. The end was far from sight. I've picked up writing once more. Just for me. Only for me. In the stillness of night, as silence enveloped the house and the outside world ceased its noise, I perched on the bed's edge, pen poised, notebook resting on my lap. I'd reveal it all. All the unspoken thoughts, all the feelings I couldn't grasp. Questions circled within me, relentless as vultures. I pinned a piece on that kiss. It left my chest aching and my stomach fluttering. The heat persisted, echoing long after the end. I pinned my thoughts on guilt. Such disgrace. A part of me shrank back from my own choices. And the part of me that clung to the memory, I pinned the quietude shared by Richard and me. It stretched like a canyon between us. Profound, broad, resonating with unspoken words. I began to ponder if emotional deprivation could ever warrant crossing the line, if yearning for something so human could justify a moment like that. Was it more wrong to take what wasn't mine? Or to continue as if nothing was amiss when everything truly was? I steered clear of Adrian after that. Beyond the physical, into the emotional and mental realms. At breakfast, I avoided his gaze. I missed meals. I lost myself in tasks and chaos, yet he remained present. Within my thoughts. Within my dreams, in the dead of night, I'd awaken breathless, trapped in a dance of guilt and longing. I despised it. I loathed my inability to stop thinking about him. I loathed the facade of normalcy I had to maintain before my husband. I despised the numbness with Richard, yet felt so alive in that one awful moment with Adrian. I began to inquire about things I feared knowing. Is what I did really that bad? Or what Richard always avoids? Is it betrayal to touch someone when your heart has remained untouched for years? Is silence considered cheating as well? No answers arrived. Only silence remains. One morning, Adrian vanished. Richard mentioned he visited his mother. Silence prevails. Farewell not needed, simply vanished. It stung more than I anticipated, yet I grasped it. He had to go. Not after that. Not with what hung in the air between us. No clash occurred. Silence prevails, only emptiness. A vacant spot in the corridor, echoing with memories of his laughter. A still chair at the morning table, and I remain still here. Still in the same kitchen. Yet everything feels different now. The kitchen was once the heart of my family's meals. Here I lost a piece of myself forever. Have you ever felt so unseen that even negative attention seemed comforting? I regret what occurred. I'm not going to pretend it didn't matter. It simply did. It brought me back to life, still able to feel, still visible. Now I carry this weight in my chest. Each day I ponder, should I confide in my husband? Would it solve anything? Would it merely shatter what's already fractured? Or do I bear it silently, shouldering it alone as I have with all else? What would you do if you were me? Would you have let go? Did you leave the kitchen that night? Could you have feigned indifference to your own feelings? I'm curious and eager to find out. I want to feel reassured that I'm not alone in navigating this gray area of morality, caught in desire and remorse, between my perceived self. In that instant I transformed. Share your thoughts below, even if it's merely a sentence, even if it's a verdict, or pardon. Your words could guide me, or another soul sharing this silent pain. If this tale touched you even slightly, consider subscribing to Shocking Infidelity Saga. Here we reveal the truth, the kind that makes you squirm. It dwells in the shadows of flawless abodes. Remember to give the video a thumbs up. It aids beyond your awareness. This preserves tales like these. Someone out there needs to hear it. One final note before I leave. Often where we find comfort turns into the backdrop for our deepest regrets. We believe we hold the reins. We believed it was impossible. Until that moment arrives, hushed and gentle, we understand our hunger. Exercise caution in the direction your cravings take you. Some cravings should go unfulfilled.